Good evening and welcome to tonight's driver's ed class. Our second class of our first week. Last night was a very productive class. We kind of laid down the foundation of what to expect. We're going to kind of piggyback on that. Tonight we're going to get into licensing, registration, titling, and then we're going to get into the highway transportation system. So part of your homework was to read parts 1, 2, and 7 in the manual. Some of you still haven't done the pre-test, so please go over to Toll Driving School Remote Driver's Ed Facebook page to do the test. The link is found there, and remember your password will be May 2021. So please sign in. I see 15 people are in view. Remember, also sign in on your phone so I know that you're here. So we're going to wait till we get up around 20 people before we start getting into content. So part of what I want to do tonight is to find out what people's availability is to drive. Yesterday we got all the paperwork done. I did send it into the state, so now you are officially enrolled into a driver's ed program, and the state knows that you're coming through the pipeline to get your driver's license. And tonight we'll talk about what does that actually look like when it comes time to get your license. Sign in on your phone is text I'm here. So go to your phone and say I'm here. That way I've got a log. Part of what, because of this is not a Zoom and because it's remote, I have to have, if the state wants to know that you actually attended class, I actually take a photo of who signed in on comments. I'm not getting any comments. Anybody signing in on YouTube. I don't know why. I wonder why there's no comments. So I'm getting the messages on my phone, but for some reason I'm not getting a comment at all. So please also comment on YouTube, because I'm not seeing anything. No. Oh, there we go. Ian just did it. Thanks. I thought it was just me. So there's two things you got to do. Okay. One, be on YouTube so I can see the comments here, so I can see your names. And then this is for the attendance of when you showed up for class. Because after tonight's class, all the comments on YouTube disappear. I can't really prove who was here. There we go. So we're getting closer. We got 22. All right, we've got just about everybody here. Awesome. Okay, let me get out of the music here so we can start talking about content. Okay, first thing I want to mention is that the pretest is not a graded score that you need to be worried about. It is just questions that are very similar to what you'll see on a midterm or final here in the class, and it gives me some idea of what you have for a basic knowledge about driving. Now, anything that deals with numbers or footage questions, I didn't expect you to get it right. But I did want to kind of show you part of taking the program. It's going to get you familiarized with how the state views certain information on what is required law-wise, of like when to put your signal on, when to put your headlights on, different things like that. All right. So there is a common sense part to driving, but then there's the factual part where laws are written and enforced. So we've got to try to move you to where you have a general knowledge about something to where you have specific knowledge about something. And that should make you a better driver. So do not worry if you got like a 50, 60, 70. Has no bearing at all on your passing the class. Okay. Be more concerned about getting your homework in. And I want homework done tonight on chapter 1, the questions, because we're going to go through the chapter kind of roughly. You're going to have to read it tonight to get more specifics, but I do it like an overview. You read it during the half hour after we're done, and then you answer the questions, and that counts for the last half hour of class. Tomorrow, on your phone, what I need you to do right now, okay, on your phone, if you have a free study, please text me what you have for a free study. I cannot drive during study skills, but if you have like A period, C period, F period, then we can drive. You would sign out in the office with Mrs. Richardson. On the computer, there's a place that you can sign out, and I will be able to drive with you during that time because you're already at the school, so we don't have to worry about you getting a ride there or a ride back. Plus, it allows me to drive during the day. If we're all fighting for drive times at the end of the day, everybody's only going to drive maybe once every week and a half, and you're not going to get done until like July or August. So we need to take hold of as many openings that we possibly have. So for tomorrow, all right, I believe, let me take a look. I see some people have some free periods. This is awesome. See people texting in. So tomorrow from noon to 4 o'clock, anybody that can drive from noon to 4 o'clock, and I do have a 5 o'clock open. 4 is already taken from a previous class. But from noontime to 4 o'clock, if anybody wants to drive, just text me at the end of class. Not right now because it's going to get lost in all these comments, okay? And we'll start to build an idea of when you could drive. The other thing you need to do, if you don't have a free period, let me know what days look better for you for driving. Like I can drive every day except Monday from 3 to 6. I can drive anytime on Saturday. We'll kind of go from there. We'll build up more of a schedule for driving after tomorrow's class, but for tonight, we just want to deal with tomorrow, take care of tomorrow's drives, take care of tomorrow's class, and then we'll kind of schedule the next 4 or 5 days out, and then we'll probably get more specific on drive times. And to me, that's the hardest thing to do, is schedule driving. So we want to be open to get as many people in as we possibly can, but I'm not going to force you to drive, okay? This is your responsibility. If you don't contact me, then I'm probably not going to contact you for a while. To give you some idea of when I say I'm not going to contact you, I did not contact somebody about driving after their class was finished, and I just got an email today from their parents saying, hey, they want to finish up. They took driver's ed last March. It's been over a year since they've driven. So I don't track you down. So this is your responsibility. All right. So let's kind of get out of this, get into what we were talking about yesterday. When we were talking about skills and techniques about driving, I introduced you to Andy Pilgrim. That gave you some overview of why learning to drive and getting trained to drive is so important, and how your attitude is going to get you a long ways to getting to that license. And we're going to kind of stay on that. Now, I have one last video that I did not show you from last night. Now, we talked about being dangerous or vulnerable behind the wheel of the car if you're distracted. I want you to write down, there are 3 points, okay? There are 3 points to why young people have a difficult time learning to drive at such a young age. Okay, you have 3 disadvantages. So I want you to write these down in your notes, okay? And I want you to text me what you on your phone. So don't do it on the comment section. I only want it on your phone. Okay. There are 3 situations that are going to put you in a disadvantage of driving. All right. So I want to show you this last clip.
For many, adolescence is the healthiest period of their lives. Teenagers are close to their peak in strength, reaction time, immune function, and other health assets. Yet mortality rates increase by 200% from childhood to late adolescence. What is causing this spike in mortality? One possible explanation is that teenagers make risky decisions that place lives at risk. Researchers are studying developmental processes that occur during the teen years, focusing on different ways that brain development relates to adolescent risk-taking. Of particular interest is teenage driving behavior. Motor vehicle accidents are the leading cause of death for U.S. teenagers, accounting for more than 1 in 3 deaths in this age group. 3 factors work together to make the teen years deadly for young drivers. 1. Inexperience. Experience is critical to safe driving. Common mistakes for novice drivers include ineffectually scanning for hazards, failing to adjust speed, and losing attention on the road. 2. Risk-taking behavior. Teens assess the overall risk of driving appropriately, but improperly assess risk for single drives. The result is a teenager who believes she can handle hazardous situations, who is overconfident in her limited experience, and is less vigilant about safety. 3. Greater risk exposure. Social pressures often place teenagers in situations where they are driving at night, distracted by peers, or under the influence. The overconfidence and inexperience of the drivers exacerbates the risks associated with these conditions.
Okay, so I want you to text me on your phone what you took from that video. What are the 3 factors that are going to be your disadvantage as a young driver? Okay, so that's going to show me that you are here, that you're watching the video, taking notes. So write down, what are your 3 factors? Look at that. They're coming in hot and heavy. Awesome. Good, good. I'll talk about them at the very end of the program. I'll just give you a minute to text it into me. It's a big deal getting a license. You've waited a long time. I know probably some of you have been driving probably for a year or so, maybe even before legally you could do it in the state of New Hampshire. And you're just counting down the days till you're able to go to the state to get your license. So we're going to kind of do an overview of owning a vehicle and getting a driver's license right here. The thing I want you to write down in your notes is just because you're taking driver's ed, just because you are at the age to obtain a driver's license, doesn't mean that you're going to be getting one. So I want you to write down, driving is not a right, driving is a privilege. Okay, driving is a privilege. That means you must complete driver's ed. So once you've completed driver's ed, I give you paperwork, which we'll talk about, and you will request from the state to take an exam. There are 3 parts to the road to your driving exam. It's an eye test, written test, and road test. And you must pass all 3 components in order to get your driver's license. If you do not pass any of them at any time, you do not move on to get your driver's license. Now, I just mentioned that it's a privilege given to you through the state, but the other thing you've got to remember, you're not an adult. The only way you're getting a driver's license is because your parents want you to get a driver's license. In your notes, write down, my parents can prevent me from getting my license. You've got to understand that your parents at any time, even after you receive your driver's license, they can contact the DMV. And I'm going to just make up a person. Let's say his name is Roland. If Roland was getting in trouble with his friends and his parents thought there could be maybe drugs involved and they were worried that he was going to hurt himself or someone else behind the wheel of the car, his parents could actually call the DMV and say, I do not want Roland to have his license anymore. And because your parents have to sign for your driver's license, the state would go into the computer system and basically suspend his driver's license until he gets to be 18 as a legal adult. So your parents have a lot of pull in you getting your license and keeping your license. Now, Roland doesn't have to get retested once he gets to be 18 because he already passed the I-written and road test. But his parents aren't responsible for him. And there are ways for Roland to get it at 16 or 17 without his parents, but you're dealing with the courts and you're dealing with being emancipated. And we're not going to kind of go down that road. Just realize that if your parents really want to teach you a lesson, they could pull your license. The state manual only covers basic laws, rules, and regulations. We're not going to have enough time to get into everything that could happen out on the roadway. If at any point during the driver's ed program you have a question, please feel free to ask me any question. I'll try to answer it honestly. If I don't know the answer, I'm not going to make up something. I'm going to try to have to research it over the weekend and get back to you. It's important that you get good information through the driver's ed program and factual information. There's just so many laws out on the road, dealing with driving, that you can't know all of them. The next thing I want you to think about is driving safely all the time. It's a big responsibility to get behind the wheel and to drive, and I want you to take it extremely seriously. Suspension revocation, what does it mean? Suspension, write this down, is a short period of time your license taken away. It's in the manual, and I can't remember which section it was in that you had to read, but I'll go over it right now. So this is information that you're going to need to know for the midterm or final. Your first moving violation. Now, when I talk about moving violation, I'm talking about the car is moving. Okay, you do not lose your license for a parking ticket. You do not lose your license because you didn't get your car inspected. You do not lose your license because you have a brake light that is out. Okay, all those things may get you a ticket, but it's not a moving violation ticket. So a suspension of your driver's license when you're under the age of 18, your first violation is a 20-day suspension. Your second violation is 45. Your third is 90. Now, from the time that you give your license to the state, the clock starts ticking. Once 20 days is up, they send it back to you. So it actually is probably a little bit longer than 20 days. But it's 20 days that it's in their possession, and you have to mail it. So that's important for you to understand that. Revocation, I want you to write down, is a longer period of time of losing your license. It usually starts around a year, and it can go up to a lifetime. So definitely a revocation of your license is a lot worse than a suspension. And we'll talk more about suspensions probably when we start talking about, drinking and driving and some of the more heavy hitters, as we call in driver's ed, of topics that we'll be covering, speeding, things like that. Okay, but for the most part, you're only going to lose it for, a couple weeks up to a month, month and a half, maybe 3 months. Remember that a good driving personality is related to your attitude. We kind of talked about that last night. And driving is a complex task which requires your full attention. There are 19 locations that you can go throughout the state to get your driver's license. So write this down. If for whatever reason, and driver's ed programs really bulk up on the number of students they have during the summer months, and some of the DMVs have their employees go on vacation, so they get backlogged. And during COVID last year, it was close to a month from the time that you tried to get an appointment till you actually walked in the DMV to get your license. It was a long time. I don't think it's quite that way right now because I know, like I said, I finished people up last week. I think they scheduled what they did, and you didn't hear it from me. I think they scheduled it before they completed driver's ed. that you're not supposed to do that, but what you do, and I don't know, that's talk to your friends. When you do go for your driver's license, you do have to show proof of who you are. So 2 forms of ID. One needs to be a birth certificate. Some of you have been texting me your birth certificate, so I appreciate that. The rest of you, you need to do that. I need proof of your age. I need proof when you're out driving with me. If they ever want to know who's driving, I have to show them that. And basically, New Hampshire does not have a permit system. All it requires you to do is when you drive with your parents or drive with me is you have to have your birth certificate or passport or something like that in the car with you. There is no exam that you had to take. You just had to be with a licensed driver, older than 25, in the passenger seat and have proof of age. The fee for getting your license is $50. Okay. If you're a New Hampshire resident, of course, you need a New Hampshire driver's license. If you move to another state, you're going to have to surrender your New Hampshire license, and then you're going to have to get reissued a different state license. Now, would you have to take driver's ed over again? Depends on when you move to that state, at what age. Usually when you turn 18, they're not going to make you redo some of these things. But I have known people that have moved from the south up to New Hampshire, and they've had to take portions of the driver's ed program here. They gave them like half credit. So depending on where you're moving and what's happening, there could be some hoops you got to jump through before you surrender your license. Okay. But you have to be 16 if you're in New Hampshire to get a driver's license. And I think you all know that already. So this is the type of license you're going to be getting. So write this down. You're getting a youth operator's license. It's good for 5 years. You can't drive with more than one non-relative for your first 6 months. That is a ticketable offense, okay? If you're involved in a crash, and usually this is where it comes up. If they pull you over for speeding or running a stop sign and they ask who else is in the car and they see that you've got your friends but your 6 months isn't up, I know for a fact that a lot of times they'll tell you not to do that. This shouldn't be happening. They only write you up for the rolling the stop sign or speeding. I think not having or having more than one non-relative in the vehicle is a major distraction. That's why they have it on the books here. I think you could get in more trouble if the person gets injured in a crash, because then they're going to get the insurance company involved, and it's going to be like they were willingly breaking a law they should have known, and we're not going to pay for medical costs and things like that. So I think it's going to get a little bit touchy when it gets to be insurance. But for the most part, I think most police officers are cutting you a break because they already pulled you over for, like I said, a stop sign or a speeding. They don't want to pile on with like 3 tickets. You know, it's going to cost you hundreds of dollars. There is a curfew when you drive. You can't drive between 1 and 4 in the morning. But of course, none of you would probably be out that time anyways, because your parents have probably told you nothing good happens between, midnight and 6 in the morning. This is why you should be home in bed and not out with your friends and causing trouble out in downtown Durham or Dover or wherever you live. So there is some type of a curfew for you when you're dealing with driver's license. Now, if you're outside of the vehicle, I think it's more of a town thing if there's a curfew. But driving-wise, this accounts for everybody throughout the state. So let's talk about getting your license. Right now, you do it online. So write that down. There is an application that you could go online and do it. I'll try to remember tomorrow. I'll try to take a snapshot. I thought that I did have it around. Oh, here we go. I think I found it. I did it for the last class. Let's see if I can bring it up on the screen. There we go. Okay, there it is. Division of Motor Vehicles. Down to the middle, it says, welcome to New Hampshire DMV. Appointments and services. That's what you want. You want an appointment. I need to get my license renewed, so I'm going to go to online renewal. I have to do that by July. Real ID, which is the way the state's going, or all states are going to have their license issued, is having that yellow circle with a star in it. So they're going to start doing that. Forms, documents. Some of you have still had questions about what to do with the 40 hours that you need to do with your parents. There it is, right there on the bottom right-hand side. Yes, George, good question. Can you drive out of state with your youth operator's license? Absolutely. Yes, you can. Once you become a legal youth operator in New Hampshire, you could drive all 50 states. Now, of course, you're not going to Alaska or Hawaii, but the 48 contiguous states, you could drive to California legally from state to state. There is no restriction, which is kind of cool. Request a test. There we go. That's probably where you are, right there. That would probably be your road test. Appointments, it almost seems like that would be too. So maybe they both link together, but I would probably say the one in the middle on the far right, request a test. Okay, that would probably be it. You could pay your tickets. Look at that. You could do that. And the driver's manual. They're out of driver's manuals. I just scoffed up a box for you guys about a week ago, but I just got a notification that the state does not have any more driving manuals. So everybody learning to drive right now is going to have to click that button and download it. So that's where you go, Division of Motor Vehicles. That's what it looks like, and that's how you're going to register for your test. You could probably pay online, and the parental form, I think your parents would probably be able to do that online too. Now with digital signatures, I think that's fine. Now, the driver education certificate is what you're getting from me. This is why you're here. So we've got to complete this class. You've got to show me you know the written material. You've got to do well with your 10 hours of driving with me. And then your parents are going to sign off on the observation. I will give you your certificate. So that's what we're working towards. The parent log, we've already talked about, so I'm not going to talk about that. Real ID, I kind of just mentioned, so I'm going to kind of go through this real quick. We are trying to get to a real ID, but because of COVID, I think things have been pushed back. This was in the manual before COVID came. So I think this October 1st date's being pushed back a little bit, but you really don't have to probably worry about that right now. And there's that yellow circle with a star in it. That's what they're looking for you to board a plane or get into a federal building at some point coming up. It's going to be soon, but I don't think it's going to be October. And by the way, when you do get your license, it's a paper license. You don't get your piece of plastic license like you see here on the screen, probably for a couple weeks. They send it to you in the mail. They take your picture, make sure everything looks good, and then they send it to you. We've already talked about practice driving, so we're not going to get into that too much. Just make sure that people who are working with you actually are working with you when you're driving. You want people to critique your driving. It's the way you're going to get better. It doesn't do you any good if you learn to drive on the white line the whole time you're out with your parents. You want to learn how to stay centered in your lane on straightaways and how to change position according to obstacles and problems on the roadway. And parents should explain to you why they want you closer to the yellow line, why they want you closer to the white line, why they want you to decrease speed or increase speed above or below the speed limit at times to handle certain problems. And that's where the observation is coming in with your parents. You're getting to see their judgment and reasoning of why they do things. Everybody's a little bit different. You're going to have your own style of driving, but there are some commonalities of being a good driver. And that's what we want to learn here in class. This is what we want you to practice when you're out with your parents. And what Andy was talking about in the videos that he did for us last night. So when you go for your test, we talked about the two forms. So we're not going to have to go over that, but there's examples: birth certificate, passport, visa, school ID, all good examples. But the birth certificate has to be one of them, or the passport. Social Security would also be included there. Make sure you bring a vehicle that you are familiar with. You do not take it in the driver's ed car. You do not take it in a state vehicle. It is the vehicle that you've been practicing with. Now, I know some people talk to me and they say, well, I'm going to use my grandparents' car. Well, how many times have you driven it? Well, maybe once or twice. So you've done all 40 hours in your dad's truck, but you're going to take your test on your grandparents' SUV. You may have a problem with the brake. You may not be able to stop where you want to stop, or you're not going to accelerate the way that you normally accelerate because the gas pedal feels different. So bring something that you could test well with, all right? If you're going to use a different car, drive it for a bit before you go to the state. Now, this is not on here. Let me go back because I don't think I included here. So let's talk about the vehicle that you do bring. First impressions go a long way. And the minute you get into a car, okay, you can tell if it's dirty, if it smells. So whatever vehicle you bring, you should clean it out, wash the windows, put up an air freshener or something. And the same thing with you. When you go for your test, I always tell people dress for your test like you would for an interview at Market Basket. All right. Show that you care about what you're doing. And I know most people do, but I'm going to kind of pick on being in the summer what people may do. So if you're showing up in flip-flops with, cut-off shorts and a tank top and your hair's a mess, it looks like you just rolled out of bed. I'm sorry. The minute you get in the car, people are going to wonder if you're going to take this seriously. I'm not talking about a suit and tie. I'm not talking about a dress. I'm just talking about being presentable. Okay, because first impressions do happen. Whether people admit it or not, it happens. The other thing, too, about you, there's the testing site in Dover, so be careful you don't go in the wrong way. They do have signs posted, but sometimes people find themselves going in the wrong way, so don't go in that way. Get rested the night before. Do most of your studying 2 days ahead. Don't wait for the night before. Do it a couple days, and little by little, just keep on looking at cue cards or looking at your notes, 2 or 3 days in a row. So you've got it kind of fresh at the top of your mind. Plan out your day. They do give you a drive time, meaning that they want you to show up at like 8:30 or, 1:20 or, 2:15. Show up a little early, be prepared, have all your paperwork. And like I said, the clean car and being dressed, normally for a job interview, you're going to probably do well. You're going to do okay. I will tell you, if you do well on my final, you will not have a problem with the state final. Okay. The information I give you and how I test you, I very rarely hear someone going for their license and not passing the written part. Most of my students go and they have a problem with the driving part. And the reason why they do have a problem with the driving part is that they do not put into practice what I've been telling them to do. Some of their mistakes are very minor, but there are multiple ones. And just remember that things do add up. And we'll talk about how they're going to deduct it. George got another question. He's got, do you take the written visual driving exam the same day? They try to do it that way. Right now, I believe that they are, but when they are overbooked, like they were this past summer, and my son, who took it, 6 years ago, but he took it in the summertime, he had to take it on separate days. He did the iWritten test on one day, and he had to come back a week later for the driving portion. So let me put it this way. If you don't go by the end of June, you're going July into August. Any time that you're doing an application July and August, it's probably going to be a longer of a wait. If you're going to try to get done my program and be done by the 15th and have everything done, and you want to get tested, say, on the 16th, 17th, 18th, I think there's a good chance it could happen. But I think once you get into July, I think things are going to start backing up because all the driver's ed programs are going to be releasing large numbers. My class numbers are getting higher in the last two classes. I only had 9 people in January. Last class was 23. You guys are 22. The next class is 27 or 28. Could go as high as 30. So numbers are getting up there. When you get there, they're going to give you a time, so you do have to check in, and they'll give you some idea of when they're going to be able to take you. And as I said earlier, they're going to break it down into 3 parts. So the eye test is really, really quick. They have you look into a machine, close one eye, use both eyes, and they have you read lines. It's a typical eye test. Actually, I'm supposed to give you an eye test, but since we aren't meeting in class, let me show you what they normally do. I don't know if I still have it on my screen here. I usually pull it, and I don't see. Let's see if I cue it up. Hold on a second. I'll see if I can find it. I don't know if I can find my my picture. Oh, here it is. I got it. There it is. Okay, that's what they do. Let me make it a little bit bigger. They'll say, okay, read line 5 from left to right, PECFD. Okay, close one eye, then close the next eye, and you know, if you do well, you're fine. If you don't do well, okay, then the test ends. They don't even let you do the written test. If you fail the eye test, they think your eyes aren't really that good. They won't let you go on to do the next 2 things. A lot of people say, well, I don't think I need my glasses or my contacts for driving. Can I try to take the test without them? Yes, you can. But please let them know from the get-go. So when they say, look into the machine, say, can I do it without my contacts, or can I do it without my glasses? And they'll say, okay, we'll give it a try. And then if it doesn't go too well, they'll go, okay, put the glasses on, put the contacts in. Let's see if it works a little bit better. And they'll let you do it, which is kind of cool. But you got to bring it up to their attention, though. They're not going to be able to figure out, especially if you're not wearing it. The written test now. This was, I think they're revamping the questions. They have a computer system that's kind of like an iPad, where you kind of just use your finger and you just choose. I went to a training, probably about 6-7 years ago at the DMV in Concord, and I had my phone with me, and some of the driver's ed teachers were standing around one of the computers, and one of them sat down to kind of, mimic what it would look like to take a test. And I asked, do you mind if I film him taking the test? And they said, sure, go ahead. Film the test if you want. And someone says, aren't you worried they're going to know what the questions are? And they go, no, because no test is alike. So when your friend goes for their driver's test, if they were to remember every single question that they had, you're probably not going to have a single question like theirs. They told me that they have like over 1,000 different questions they can ask you, and they just rotate. They just scramble them up. So when you go into the testing site, don't feel like you're going to be able to, lean back in your chair and look at the person in the other terminal, see what he's doing. And by the way, if you take out your phone or, write something on your hand, and they can tell that you're trying to, gain information by cheating, they're going to kick you out. They're going to send you home. So, and don't do it. Don't do it. Like I told you, I've been teaching driver's ed for a long, long time. Have I had people cheat on my test when I had a class? Yes, absolutely. I could tell that they were cheating. I could see that they had notes, up their sleeve or under the test, and they had different ways of they were doing it. Now, the unfortunate thing, like with last night in the pretest, I don't know what you guys are doing when you're doing it. So you're only cheating yourself if you're not taking the test. Now, last night was not really a test. And like I said, I wasn't really worried about your score. But the midterm and the final, I want you to be honest and, man up and do it on your own. If you don't pass it, I'll work with you. We'll work on getting you up to where you've got a passing score. But I don't want you to cheat on it, because I really do believe you're only cheating yourself. So let me show you the video. I do have it here somewhere.
As you notice, there's a volume.
There we go.
There's a volume here on the right. We also have headphones that plug in. Everybody gather around.
So that's kind of cool. If you want to use headphones, they do. If you have a hard time understanding.
What it's going to do is it walks you through each individual screen, kind of prompts you to the next screen. It's pretty self-explanatory. Hit continue, go on to the next one.
Now it's kind of glitchy.
What it does is it gives you 4 dates of birth.
It's an older computer system, so the new ones are much better.
You have to pick your date of birth to continue. So when you walk into our test room and you see 5 test stations, well, how do I know which one is mine? Well, number
I'll
one,
be right back. Jay O'Leary.
Still, I can get
What was that?
April 6th, 94.
Okay.
694, that'll be the bottom.
Thank you.
It tells you at the beginning that it's a 40-question test and that you need to get 32 to pass.
Is every question based on the manual?
No, it is not. There are a couple of questions in there that are required in your curriculum that are in there that aren't in the manual.
And I know that Trooper O'Leary had stated that he had mentioned this to you folks in there, but we are getting some calls from people saying, you know, this wasn't in the manual when they have just been to driver's ed.
This is why
So
you've got
it's
to
very
take good
important
notes.
that you folks know
It's more
that
than the
it's
manual.
not just
It's
the
my
manual
class.
that
It's
tested on, it's your
responsible
curriculum.
driving.
So that is very important
And
that you
those
impart that
complaints are
information to your people.
Extremely few and far between, so it's not like it's an issue. It's just something that actually cropped up recently.
Do a sample test.
Yep, and what you
Let
do.
me move it up here just a little bit. Let's see if we can get up here. So that's a practice. Okay, here we go.
Yep, go ahead.
So after each question, they score you. So at the bottom, you can tell whether you got the question right or
This
wrong.
might have to be recalibrated. We haven't used it that
This one
much,
hasn't
but
been used in a couple of
so,
months.
but it
Like
is
you
the
said
touch
earlier,
screen.
the
It's
minute
usually
you
in-
score 32 correct answers, the test is over. It's a 40-question test. You need to get an 80. And 80 is
I'll ask you to
32
confirm
correct
your answer.
answers.
Is that correct? And at this point, because it's just a sample, it's not going to tell you if you got it right or wrong. It's just so that you know where to touch the screen and what pressure to use, things like that. Go ahead, begin test.
Okay, take his license away.
Yep, that's good.
You know where that is?
What about the volume? Oh, there it is.
Non-authorized area, the building beyond.
It's going to ask you to confirm your answer.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to really zoom in smoothly. So let's just hold it right there. A pedestrian starts to cross in front of your vehicle. You should. And it gives you four possible. It's all multiple choice. You're always going to have four possible answers. I mean, come on. I think everybody could answer that question. You stop and let the pedestrian go. He's right in front of you. But if for some reason you don't understand the question, notice just off to the right of the box, there's a repeat, there's a play, there's a volume button. Like they said, they will allow you to use headphones, which is kind of useful. Let me kind of scan up here a little bit further because of the 40 questions, 10 will be signs. Well, here's another question. You are late to work and in a hurry. Before you back into the street, he's selecting check for children and other objects around your vehicle. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow night in class, how we do a pre-check around the vehicle. So you can see it's not really too difficult. Let's get to a sign real quick. There we go. What is that sign right there? Is it do not enter, no parking, enter the street ahead slowly, or let's see if I can, I can't move me. I'm hiding D, but we know that it's do not enter. Let's just hear what he says.
But you see, this
is
test
not an
offers a lot
abacus.
more
They usually
visual aid
do
than
the
the paper test did.
Hey, what do you do in your own time?
So it's gonna, once you select it, then it'll
Gives you
say,
the
do you
option to
want A
enlarge
as
the
your
picture
answer?
so you can see it.
You
If
don't
you actually
make a
touch any
mistake.
portion of the lettering on the screen, it makes that bigger as well.
For the visually impaired.
Right. So if you can't see to drive, we can make the lettering bigger for you.
We're gonna have
So that's what the test looks like. A couple other things that he talked about, but I skipped over. You can skip a question if you get really, nervous that you're not quite sure what to do. Well, skip it. It will put it at the very end of the test. Like I said, once you hit 32 right, the test ends. One of the students that I had from my last class, he told me he only had 2 wrong, so he got to question 34. After he answered question number 34, his test was over. So he only missed 2. He only missed 2 questions. I don't think it's that difficult. If you study, if you pay attention, I find in my classes that very few, like I said, have problems with the written test. I usually hear people for having problems with the road test. Now, the road test is 20 minutes, and this is what the testing sheet looks like. They have you what's off to the right. They have you put that in your car on the side view mirror, rear view mirror, excuse me, while they come out to test you. So they send you out to move your vehicle over to the left side of the parking lot in Dover. And while you're waiting there, you can read it. It says you will be tested on your ability to maintain your position in your lane, your ability to keep a safe interval, both front and rear, ability to change lanes, giving adequate warning to other drivers, defined by 3 to 4 seconds, correct signal use, presetting them upon completion of lane change. You're going to have stop signs, traffic lights, pedestrians, emergency vehicles while you're driving. They're going to evaluate you, how well you handle them. You're going to be turning left, turning right. You're going to have to park at least once. It could be more, but at least once. And it takes 15 to 20 minutes. It's not that hard. And there's the scoring sheet. So if you want to know what they mark you off on, and I'm not going to get into each column. If we have more time at the very end of the program in June, then I'll go over this again. But everything that you do has a point value. So if you go too fast, it could be 5 points. If you go extremely fast, it could be automatic failure, or maybe 10 points. If you don't use your signal, it could be 3 points. If you don't, make a smooth turn, if it was done poorly, it could be 5 points. So if you went over a yellow line on a turn, it could be 5 points. So you have 20 points to play with. The minute you have 21 points taken off, then that means you have a 79. You do not pass your road test. They can be very picky. I will tell you that, because it's so, you could go back to change your answers, but only at the point where they ask you, are you sure you want letter C? So once you hit C and the box comes up, do you want C? That's your time to change it. Once you hit, I want C, or whatever, I forgot what the box said, then you're stuck. All right. Is the test timed? It is. You're given 40 minutes to take the test. And you know how long it takes the average person to take this test? 12 minutes. The average person taking the driving test for the written part is 12 minutes. Then when you think about you're going out for a road test, which is 15 to 20 minutes, your eye test isn't going to take you any time. Your whole test is probably around 30, 35 minutes when you actually think about time actually doing something, not time waiting, of course, because you may have to wait for a while, but you're actually doing something to get a driver's license is probably around a half hour. That's pretty crazy to show that you're responsible enough to be in a vehicle by yourself, making judgment and reason calls to interact with other people on the roadway. Wow. That's a big underdoing. But we find that people are doing fairly well. If you don't pass, let me tell you, you will get retested. It's not like they're going to make you wait like months and years. It's usually your first fail is 10 days, second fail probably a month, maybe a month and a half. Fail it 3 times, could be a couple months, maybe half a year. Fail 4 times, it could be up to a year. You just keep going back until you get good enough to pass. So, but the other thing too is, sometimes you just get nervous and bad things happen. I've had people that I thought were very good drivers go and fail. And I've had drivers that I didn't think really knew the material or didn't drive particularly well, and they go and they pass on their first try. It just happens. The real test of a good driver is really what's going to happen a year from now. If we were to meet a year from now, have like a party, a driver's ed party, and we were all telling stories, those that were in, driver's ed and telling that they didn't get stopped for any reason the whole year, they didn't back in anybody, that's the sign that you're a good driver. It's not really that whether you passed your driver's test when you were 16 because you were nervous. What is it like a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? That's the sign that you're a good driver. I know I'm kind of going over this kind of quick because I do want to get into the highway transportation system tonight. commercial driver's license for truck drivers, you have to be 18 to get a commercial driver's license. The only thing I want you to know from this slide is you're getting a youth operator's license, which is really an operator's license, Class D. It allows you to drive a vehicle up to 26,000 pounds. What does that mean? It means that if you go to college and you have to bring your dresser and your bed and all that stuff, and you have to rent a U-Haul, guess what? You can still legally drive a U-Haul at 17, 18 years of age because they do not weigh over 26,000 pounds. Motorcycle license, we'll talk about that the last week of class. Same thing with motor-driven cycle that has a 5 horsepower or a moped. All these motorized vehicles, if you're not getting an operator's license, they will require you to go and get tested down at the DMV to show that you can operate these vehicles by balance and stopping and speed and stuff like that. So they set up a course for you to go through. The only thing I want you to know here is the first and the last thing is corrective lenses, because we talked about passing for an eye test. That's going to be a B on your license. Just be aware that anything that happens to you physically as you get older in life, let's just say that you are in a bad motorcycle crash and you lost your right leg. So a prosthetic aid is a fake leg. So if you've got a fake leg, you're going to have a D on your license. Why do they need to know that? Well, because you probably may not be able to drive a manual transmission with only one leg. Okay, you need 2 feet, a clutch, and then the other foot, your right foot, to use the gas and the brake. So you're going to be restricted to a automatic. So you have a fake leg, you're going to have an ED on your license. Who knows? You may even have a mechanical aid restriction if you don't have use of maybe an arm. So these are just things that could be posted on your license. Now the last one, and I think it may even be Z now, or it used to be Z. IID stands for Ignition Interlock Device. People that have been convicted of drug or alcohol offenses, before they can legally drive in the state of New Hampshire again, they have to equip their car with a device that prevents them from getting behind the wheel of the car intoxicated. So that's why they would have this particular. So I'm not going to test you on all this. If I do test you on the midterm or something, it'll probably be corrective lenses because a lot of us wear glasses. And if you have to wear glasses to pass your eye test, then that means you have to wear your glasses all the time when you drive. No exceptions. Always have them on. Your license runs out 5 years from your date of birth. It's going to show on your license, like I said, I've got to get mine done in July. So my 5 years is up. I've got to pay $50. So 2 months before your license expires, you'll be sent a reminder in the mail. Now, I haven't received mine yet, so I'm still almost another 2 weeks. It will be exactly 2 months from my birthday. But I know it's my responsibility, so I'm going to start the process probably in June. So if you take the eye test without glasses, even though you wear glasses and you pass, will you still have a B on your license? No. The B on your license is only if you have to wear glasses to pass the test. If you take the eye test without glasses, you will not be required. Now, can you still wear glasses while you drive? Absolutely, but you will not be given a ticket if you don't have your glasses on because there's no B restriction on your license. Driving in New Hampshire, you have to have a legal license. So make sure, and by the way, if it expires, you're driving illegally, and they can tow your vehicle and bring you down to the station. They'll cuff you, put you in the cruiser, and pull you, into the back seat and down to the station because your license, you didn't renew it 6 months ago. So make sure that's not the case. Now, registration is found in the glove compartment, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. We're going to go through this kind of quick, so I want you to write down title of a vehicle shows ownership. So write that down. Title of a vehicle shows ownership. Now, for the most part, your parents probably own your vehicles. The question is, can you drive somebody else's vehicle if you have their permission? Once they give you permission, you are going to be covered by their insurance. This is why once you get your license and you have your own car, your parents gave you a nice car for your 16th birthday, but you give it to your best friend or your girlfriend or your boyfriend, whoever, and they go out and crash it. Okay? that's on you because you gave them permission to use it. You better have good insurance. It's well, my best friend's insurance will pay for it. No, they won't. It's your car. It's your insurance that was going to have to pay. So just be aware of that. To get a title costs $25. So when you buy a vehicle and you have to title it, you go to the city clerk, town clerk, city clerk, same thing. They'll make a title that's assigned to you. If you buy it from a new dealership, it's a newer car, the auto dealership will give you the manufacturer certificate, and then you go to the town clerk and you get your own title made out to you. And remember, if a loan's taken out for a vehicle, the bank owns the vehicle with you, and insurance is required. The insurance company wants to make sure that they get paid if you have a crash and total your vehicle. That's what a title looks like. And notice in black type, it says previous owner certificate and then your signature. So when you buy something on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, make sure that you get a bill of sale, meaning that they write out that they sold you their vehicle for $5,000. They give you this green piece of paper, which is a title. They sign the top portion. You sign right below them. And then there's, date and mileage and stuff like that you've got to put in. But that is what a title looks like. Registration, once you've got your title, you've got to register it so the state knows that this vehicle is going to be driven in New Hampshire. So you go to your town clerk and you pay your residence tax and you get your license plate. This is what your went too fast. This is what your registration looks like. Now, in your notes, what I want you to write down, registration is a tax. This is how New Hampshire makes its money. Anything that has a license plate in New Hampshire has to be registered, and it costs a lot of money. Now, here, if you take a look, registration was $43.20. The title, it was already titled to them, so there was no title fee. Total due was $43.20, and this was in 2009. So this was roughly 12 years ago. Okay, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. The other thing I want you to write down, the newer the vehicle, the more it's going to cost you to register it. Okay, so the newer the vehicle, the more it's going to cost you. Okay, the driver's ed card, because it's a business and it's only like 5-6 years old, it's still right around $200. When I first got it, it was around $400. So the newer the car, the more expensive. So as it gets older, you can see that the cost of registration goes down. So it's based upon the year, the value of the vehicle, registration. Is it for a full year, for 6 months? Do you already have license plate from another car that you're putting on this? Is there a tag transfer? So all that comes into it. I want you to write down, you will be tested on this for the midterm. Registration has to be done on your month of birth. So whoever owns the car with a title, they register their vehicle, they've got to do it in their month of birth. So I'm born in July, so I do everything in July. And remember, I said anything that has a license plate has a registration. So cars, motorcycles, four-wheelers, boats, trailers, snow machines, anything that has a license plate has a tax, a registration tax. So if your dad has the title for most of these vehicles and the boat and the motorcycle, think of what his birth month is like. He's paying a ton of money for registrations. So be nice to your dad or mom, okay, on their birth month, because they're forking out a lot of money for everybody to drive or have fun on the boat or fun on the snow machines and the campers. Okay, it's expensive. Inspection. So once you have the title, you get your registration. Once you get your registration, then you've got to go to a garage or someplace that does inspection and make sure that your vehicle is in safe condition. If your vehicle is not in safe condition, you cannot drive it in New Hampshire. But wait a minute, I just bought it on Craigslist. I just registered it. And now you're telling me that it doesn't pass inspection? Exactly. So basically, it's kind of backwards, wouldn't you think? Would you ever buy a car that wouldn't pass inspection? Of course you wouldn't. Write this down. Whenever you buy a used vehicle, make it contingent, meaning it's based upon whether it will pass inspection. If the car does not pass inspection, I'm giving you back your car. I do not want to buy it for $5,000. But a lot of times, people sell their vehicles, and you'll see it on Craigslist. Maybe tonight, if you got some time, check it out. The vehicle is being sold as is, which means they will not say whether it will pass inspection or not. It's up to you to figure that out. Well, if you really want the vehicle, tell him I'm going to go take it to a mechanic. If he'll put a inspection sticker on it, then I'll buy it. If he doesn't put an inspection sticker on it, I don't want to buy it. See if they will agree for you to have it checked out by your mechanic. That's the only way that I would do it. There are a lot of people that do inspections, and they'll basically tell you what needs to be done on a vehicle. They do a pretty good job checking for cars that aren't really ready to be passed. If it passes, there'll be a sticker put on your windshield. It's down on the bottom left-hand side. Inspections roughly cost right around $50. It's not set up by the state. So you've got to look for, I think I've got it up here on the next slide. There we go. Look for that sign. Every inspection station will have a sign telling you how much it's going to cost for the safety inspection and for the safety and emissions inspection. Remember that if they do find something wrong, you do not have to get it repaired with them. If you want to take it to an uncle that works on cars, if you want to take it to another dealership or auto repair place, you can do that. They're just there to point out what problems are. I will tell you that a lot of times people make up problems hoping that you will just say, yeah, okay, do the work. And in reality, the work doesn't really need to be done, at least not right off. You might be able to get a couple, 6 months more out of tires or something else before you have to replace them. So be very careful about who does your work. So look for places that are reputable. Always get a quote. Don't tell them, okay, yeah, go ahead, fix my car, and you think it's going to be like $150. You go to pick it up, and it's $550. So get a quote. Make sure that they tell you what's wrong, and if you want to take a look at the used parts, and sometimes it's a good thing to do because it really shows they took something off your vehicle. Here's the old part. You can see where it's broken, and we put a new one in. Sometimes when people don't ask for parts or ask questions, then, you may be dealing with someone that's a little bit shady. Okay. There's the sticker. That's what it looks like. It's on the bottom left-hand corner. That's a license plate with the registration tags on it. So this was in 2013, and it was done in April. So you've got the month for, and then you've got the year off to the side. All right. So that's your registration inspection stickers. Don't try to fake it. I know some of you say, oh, I don't have a lot of money. I'll just make one. That looks like a made inspection sticker. They're going to be able to figure that out. So that's registration, title, all that stuff about getting a license. So that's kind of what you kind of need to know to get out there on the roadway. I know the registration and titling stuff is probably beyond you right now. Your parents are still taking care of it. But I'd say probably in the next 3 to 5 years, when you're leaving home or you're in college, I think a lot of this information you're going to need to know because your parents aren't going to always be there to take care of it for you. So some of this, like I said, will be tested. All right, let's get into HTS, what we want to cover for tonight. And we don't have a whole lot of time, so we're going to probably have to run into tomorrow's class, but that's all right. We'll get to it. I want you to write down in your notes, HTS stands for Highway Transportation System. And why do we want to start off with this chapter? Well, it's chapter 1 in the textbook, and it does kind of lay down an overview of what is going on with our roadways, our signs, our traffic lights, and laws, and how they're enforced, and what's going to happen if we don't do what we're supposed to do, and what can we do to roads to make them safer so we don't have as many injuries and deaths out on the roadway. Because that's the ultimate goal, is to get you to where you want to go and to get you there safely. So HTS stands for Highway Transportation System. When you think back at it, and I know you're quite young, we've only been driving for roughly around 100 years. So back in the early 1900s, I thought this was kind of interesting. So when cars were first starting to come off the assembly line, there weren't a lot of them. Only the wealthy could afford vehicles. So there were 23,000 vehicles in 1902. There were 17 million horses. So we know how everybody was getting to school and getting around town. They were on a horse or in a carriage. So when you go to Portsmouth, if you've ever been to Prescott Park, think about all those brick buildings. They look kind of cool now. But guess what? When those buildings were built, there were no automobiles. People got around by horses and carts. Now we've just paved over those roads. And today, 194 million drivers, 230 million registered vehicles, traveling 42 trillion miles. I mean, roads all over the place. And we're getting really crowded. And this is why we have to build roads a little bit wider. And notice in Durham, they're making a big change. I don't know if you knew this or not, but on 108, they're putting up a traffic light at the end of the ramp because too many crashes and people are having a hard time making a left-hand turn coming off the ramp and things are backing up. So we are changing our roadway system here in Durham. I come from a family of automobile lovers. My grandfather, and this picture right here is of my grandfather's car lot here in Rochester. My grandfather, my dad, and now myself, we've lived here in Rochester. We no longer have the dealership. They've sold it back in the 1970s, but we've always been around cars. But where are we now with cars? Cars now, and back, in the 40s and 50s when my grandfather was selling cars, you usually bought from somebody you knew in the community. You may go to the next town over, like Dover or whatever, or maybe Portsmouth, but nowadays you can order a car online through CarMax or Carvana. You can travel to different states because you bought it on Craigslist. They've got pictures. They can even FaceTime what it looks like if you're really interested in it. It is different. Buying a car is totally different than it was. And driving a car, the technology that we have at our fingertips will make us safer. It's going to be the way of the future. We know that we have lane departure devices in cars now. It used to be 2-3 years ago, it was only on high-end vehicles, but now it's getting down into the mid-range vehicles. Tesla is huge now. A lot of people are driving Teslas. And it's hands-free, basically. Now, they want you to have your hands near the wheel or on the wheel for the most part, but I think you've probably seen the pictures or clips of people that are napping while driving. That's not what's supposed to happen, but it is. But let me show you a clip here of what the future is going to look like.
This is Volvo's 360C concept car, and it's just one idea of what completely driverless cars might look like one day. That means cars without even a steering wheel that can safely navigate public roads entirely on their own. But with how much we hear about self-driving technology making its way into everyday cars, it's hard not to wonder, how much longer do we have to wait? Understanding just how far we've come with self-driving technology can be a bit tricky. To help define how sophisticated the automated technology actually is, the Society of Automotive Engineers classifies these systems using 5 levels. Level 1 is driver assistance, where the vehicle is able to control steering or braking, but not both simultaneously. Level 2 is partial automation, where the car can assist with both steering and braking simultaneously, but your attention is required on the road at all times. Both Tesla's Autopilot and General Motors' Super Cruise are examples of this. Level 3 is conditional automation, where certain circumstances allow the car to handle most aspects of driving, and the driver has the ability to temporarily take their eyes off the road. Level 4 is high automation, where, in the right conditions, the car can take full control, giving the driver a chance to focus on other tasks. And level 5 is full automation. In this hypothetical situation, the car drives you, and there isn't even a steering wheel. So what level are we currently at? Most experts would agree, somewhere between levels 2 and 3. However, one of their biggest concerns is the public's misconception that we're much further along.
There's an incredible amount of confusion in the general public around the context of self-driving. In our survey data here, 23% of respondents believe that a self-driving vehicle is available for purchase today. And a lot of that has to do with statements by Elon Musk and others talking about the driverless capabilities and the self-driving capabilities of vehicles. These are systems that are made to assist the driver under the supervision of a driver.
So, is it simply the limits of these automated systems that's holding us back? Actually, there are a number of other factors in the way. For starters, our roads. Simply put, many roads, especially in the United States, are too much of a mess to support cars that can drive by themselves.
So while many individuals out there are really working on the development of self-reliant automation, in essence, a robot that's fully capable of making its own decisions in today's infrastructure, the reality is today's infrastructure is not well equipped for autonomy. In essence, potholes, poor lane markings, and all the other crumbling aspects of our nation's infrastructure aren't going to support high-tech well.
In addition to more public roads needing signs and lane markings that self-driving cars can clearly make out, vehicles need to be wirelessly connected with that traffic infrastructure, as well as one another, in order to interact with the world around them flawlessly. Fortunately, automakers like Volvo already have technology that allows their cars to communicate with each other and alert drivers of hazards via a cloud-based network. This type of connected technology is being tested even further within driverless cars at M-City, a 32-acre mock city and testing facility at the University of Michigan.
So what are connected vehicles? When we say connected at M-City, we're really referring not to streaming Netflix into your passenger seat so much. That's a pretty solved problem.
It's a race. All these car manufacturers wants to be, the one on top. Tesla definitely took the lead, but of late, there are at least 4 or 5 different all-electric self-driving cars that are being pushed for the next year or two. So who knows? In your lifetime, definitely there'll probably be a car that has no steering wheel. You'll just put in your destination, get in, and off you go. And like they said, it's giving you the ability to do other things while you're getting to work. Now, the problem I see is that once you start telling people that they can take their hands off the wheel even for, a few moments, what do you think people are going to be doing? They are going to be on their phone. They are going to be doing things to their screen or have their computer with them. They're going to be pushing the car to its limits. And I think we're going to see some pretty bad crashes. And we're going to find out that people took advantage at times of the self-automated vehicles beyond their capabilities. And there's going to be a little bit of a backlash till we kind of figure out how to handle that problem. But that's where we're headed. Building roads is expensive. And back in the 1950s, President Eisenhower came up, and I think this is what Biden's trying to do with the infrastructure, is that you could tell the roadways are in need of repair. This gives people jobs. There's a lot of money tied into driving. People don't realize it's more than just getting a license. You're becoming part of this big, movement of transportation, and transportation costs a lot. So building bridges, building roads, putting up signs, traffic lights, all this stuff. Expensive. So basically, I just wanted to point out that it usually always costs more than what we originally thought. And that's what the bottom bullet is explaining. So I do want you to write this down. The 2 biggest challenges that we have when it comes to traffic is trying to alleviate congestion, because nobody likes sitting in traffic. And the second is trying to get to where we want to go safely. So if we can solve those 2 problems, then I think we're doing a pretty decent job. So right now, gas is expensive. The lines are getting long at the gas stations. And I even noticed last Friday, traffic now that everybody's going back to school and back to work, I didn't remember it to be that bad, but traffic was really, really bad on Friday. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this weekend, especially, I believe, since it's graduation, I think at UNH. I know I'm not going to be around on Saturday because my son's graduating in Massachusetts, but there's going to be a lot of people when it comes graduation time in Durham. Okay, we're going to get through this part, at least for tonight. So with the HTS, when you do your reading tonight in Chapter 1 in Responsible Driving, you'll see this. But I want to just kind of take a moment and break down the three components to the HTS. So please write this down. The first component to using a roadway is understanding the people that use it. And we want to just kind of take a deeper look at what do we mean by the people that are using it. The age level, their mental capabilities, their physical capabilities. I think now that you're getting behind the wheel of the car and learning to drive, you've got to understand that you are now responsible for anything that crosses your path. Regardless, whether they are walking, whether they're on a bicycle, whether they're on a moped, whether they're in a car, whether they're in a tractor trailer. Anything that you're crossing paths with is now your responsibility of how you deal with them. So what I want you to write down in your notes, when it comes to ages, you've got to start thinking younger than 16. Most people, when we talk about, well, who should you be concerned about out on the roadway? And everybody goes, oh, other drivers. You know, the youngest would probably be 16. That's when you can get your license. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the youngest you can get your driver's license, but the youngest person that you're going to deal with on a roadway is anybody that can walk. I'm serious. A 2 or 3-year-old is a concern to you. And the reason why a 2 or 3-year-old is a concern to you is they don't have the judgment and reasoning of what to do when something goes out into the road, like maybe one of their toys. Or if they're in a parking lot and the mother is trying to put the groceries into a SUV and the child is out of his seat that he was in on the shopping cart, the mother puts him down on the ground, to get ready to put him back in the car seat, and he runs away from the parent because he doesn't want to get into the car. He's pretty small. It's going to be very hard to see that little kid running around the back end of a parked vehicle. But that's a concern for you. Now, when it comes to physical and mental capabilities, everybody processes things differently. So a 2 or 3-year-old will process how fast a car is coming much, much different than someone that's 16 or someone that's 34 or someone that's 78. Someone that's 78, may not even think about looking anymore. And think about this, it's kind of ironic. As you get older, you start to revert back to childlike behavior. People that are in their 70s and 80s and 90s start acting like a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old. They forget to check for traffic when they walk across the road. They don't turn their head. They may not even see something. They could be looking in that direction, but they don't even see it because their eyesight's so bad. So physical skills, people crossing the road. You're 16, you're going to get across much quicker than someone that's in their 70s. Same thing with the way that you could turn the wheel. Okay, your reaction time is much quicker than someone that's much older. So that's people. Okay, that's the first part of the HTS. The second part that I want you to be familiar with, and this is where I want you to get involved. Okay, you cannot use any one of these items or vehicles. Okay, passenger vehicle, SUV, truck, tractor trailers, motorcycle, bikes, skateboarders, rollerbladers. Anything with wheels has to be going in the same direction as a car goes. All right? Now, you can't use these. I know there are a lot. Okay? I want you to think of something very unique. Okay? Very unique that you will find out on the roadway. And let's see how many people. I'm going to do this on YouTube. So do this on the YouTube channel. All right? Put down something that you're going to see out on the road that's not up here. All right? So you can't use. I'm gonna say if you can get specific with a passenger type of vehicle, and I'll let you get kind of funky with some trucks. There are different types of trucks that we could still include, but you can't use motorcycles, can't use bikes, skateboarders, rollerbladers, but you can use the first four. Okay, the first four get a little bit more specific. Okay, so everybody on YouTube, you got to give me an answer here. I want to see who's still here. It says there's 21 people. I'm missing one person. So give me an example. Of what you're going to find out on the roadway. I know there's a little bit of a delay, but we should start seeing some answers pretty soon. Farm equipment, like it. Power wheels, I think I know where you're going with that one. Lawnmowers, that is cool. Scooters. Horses aren't motorized, but I'll give it. You will find them out on the roadway. I will give you that. School buses, I like it. Boats with wheels, yeah, on a trailer, like it. 18-wheelers, scooter, stroller, a side-by-side, like maybe like a motorcycle car. Bumper car, no. Race car, possibly, not a bumper car. Unicycles, yes, that's a good one. I have never had that one. Lawnmowers, bus, I like the bus. Animal Crossing, that's not someone that's using the roadway. That's not a vehicle. Lawnmowers, everybody's going on lawnmowers. How come nobody put like a police car or a fire truck or an ambulance? I mean, we're more apt to see those type of vehicles. How about an army vehicle when they're going to deploy, some of the troops? They'll have construction equipment. I like that one. Never had dog or horse kennels where they're carrying animals like that. That's a good one. I like that. That's really good. So you can see. Now, the reason why I wanted to go through this activity of a tank, I had someone come up with a tank. One of my Chinese students said, yeah, I've seen tanks in my country on the roadway. Yeah, I'm sure you can. Or even a tanker, like an oil tanker. That would be a good one. Now, why did we go through this exercise of coming up with all these different type of vehicles? So this is what I want you to write down. Once you see vehicles that are in front of you, to the side of you, behind of you, you've got to start processing in your mind, what are their capabilities? What do I mean? Can they speed up and slow down quickly? Do they make wide turns like larger trucks, like the tanker? Will make a wider turn than a motorcycle. How wide are they if I have to go by them on a highway? Squeeze by them. Can I squeeze by? Can I see through? If I come up to a stop sign, am I going to be able to scan left and right and be able to see well enough to make a determination whether I should pull out into traffic? So these are all things that you're going to need to understand, that when you're out on the roadway, your mind is going a million miles trying to process all this information. And the more that you practice doing this, the better you're going to get at it. Because a lot of people wait too long to react. It's because they're not thinking about things well in advance. And I think Andy kind of talked about that last night with the commentary driving. Your parents are going to feel a lot better when you start pointing out, oh, I see a large truck coming up ahead. I want to make sure that I stay back, or I'm going to go a little bit faster than normal to get past them because I don't want to get caught in their blind spot. That's letting your parents know that is how your mind is working. That's really, really important. The last one is roadways. Now, the biggest difference between a dirt roadway and a paved roadway is the loss of traction. The more traction, the more your rubber from your tires grip the road, the better control you're going to have of your vehicle. But when you start introducing gravel and dirt, your tires are going to spin. Your stopping distance is going to be greater. When you have wet leaves on the road, your tires could start to slide on top of some of the wet leaves. Just like hydroplaning, we're going to talk about heavy rain and when will tires begin to hydroplane at what speeds. Snow and sleet, all these things will come into play when you're driving on a roadway. So you have to analyze, just like what we did with people, what their capabilities are. We're analyzing the vehicles that are on the road and the type of roadway that we're on. So we have to know about our speed, our position on the roadway to effectively drive safely. So there are rural roads, city roads, highway roads, mountainous roads, coastal roads. All of them have their own advantages and disadvantages, and we have to know how to assess them and be able to adequately utilize them to get to where we want to go. And by the way, this is a picture of Dover for the guys that are from Dover. I know we've got 2 or 3 people from Dover in driver's ed. How do we regulate? Can you imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning and they said, we're going to do away with this, the Department of Motor Vehicles. We're going to let anybody that thinks they're a good driver drive on the roadway. Can you imagine how many bad drivers? We have bad drivers and we're licensing these people. Can you imagine if we had no licensing, what the roadways would look like? So we're trying to do the best that we possibly can to regulate and make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do. And the way that we do that is through the federal government or any type of government. So the government can be broken down into 3 levels: federal, state, and local. So, of course, federal being the big agency through Washington, D.C., and then we can break it down into Concord, where the state agency for the DMV is, and then from local municipalities, we have plow trucks and, people maintaining, laying down, asphalt to pave roads through the city, and we have our local police. So we're trying to do the best that we can on all 3 levels to make the roads the best that they can possibly be. And the thing you're going to realize throughout driver's ed when we talk about laws usually start with a federal push, and then it gets refined down on the state level, and then we really rely on our local police to enforce and to make these laws stick, because a law does nothing if we don't have police officers and court systems and judges upholding these violations. And the only way people change behavior if they lose their ability to drive and they have to pay money. So that's why there's a court cost and a fine associated to driving, is to make it where it's painful and people don't want to get caught and lose their license again. So I think I'm going to leave it right there. Let's see what the next slide is. This is going to be in your reading anyways. I guess I'll leave it right here. Let me get into me here for a minute. Okay, so you need to read Chapter 1 in Responsible Driving, Section 1 in the manual, if you haven't read that. I noticed that some of you did do the pretest tonight. I looked at it when you were watching the video. So I saw 3 of you have actually done it. So hopefully everybody's taken it now. But on the Chapter 1 test, so everybody go to your Responsible Driving book, and I'll get it out right now. So the questions that I want you to do, let me get to the page. Page 21. Page 21, there are 10 questions. So do your reading. Read the whole section. Just don't do the questions when I let you go in a moment. But do all the questions. Put it on a piece of paper. Take a picture of it and send it to me. That means that you did your reading and you did your questions. Now, for tomorrow, anybody that wants to drive will be texting me in the next 5 minutes. I will take a look at who can drive tomorrow at 3, who can drive tomorrow at 5. If anybody can drive during their free period tomorrow at like noontime or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, I will have those times available. And then I'll take an overview tomorrow of what people have for free time from what you text me tonight. I'll take a look on my phone at that, and we'll go from there. The other thing that we're going to be doing tomorrow is we're going to be looking at the driver's ed vehicle, about knowing your vehicle, the apparatus, all the buttons and gauges and stuff like that. And we're going to take a look at manual transmission. So we got to finish up this section first, which is probably about another 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll kind of get into the other stuff. And I'm going to give you a car worksheet to do over the weekend. And you're going to have chapter 4 and 5 to do over the weekend. So that is what we've got planned for the rest of this week. So hope to drive with some of you tomorrow. If not, we've got Friday. I don't know if I'm going to be driving Saturday. I may drive on Sunday, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. Definitely Monday, because we don't have class on Monday, and we'll drive on Tuesday. So we're going to schedule about 4 days of driving in tomorrow's class. So think about when you're able to drive, and we can do that. All right. Oh, the other thing, if you have not paid for driver's ed, you've got to send me a copy of your birth certificate, text me that, and you're going to get me a payment. All right. I want to drive with people that have paid. So you can bring a check to the school, leave it in the office, and I'll collect it. If not, you can meet me at the school. If you come to drive and you haven't paid me yet, you can do that. Or pay by Venmo. It's on that sheet. It's on this sheet that I gave you. Okay. Okay, at the top, there's my Venmo address. You can text me the money to that. All right. That's it for tonight. So thank you for taking good notes. And we're moving along. We're right where we need to be. I'm just a little bit. All right. So that's it. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.